Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here with the last video of 2021. And for this video, I will be wrapping up and talking about my 10 favorite books that I read this year. I'll be honest, this year was nothing spectacular. I did a lot of reading for discussions on our channel. I did some of my own individual reading, but only the top 2 books on this list achieved 5 stars. The third and fourth best achieved 4.5, and everything else was 4 stars. But let's get into the 10 best books that I read this year. We're going to count down from 10 to 1, and some of them are plays, so I read them within collections. But the way that they are classified, I still count them. But number 10 is a graphic text, in particular an online manga that I'm not able to show you physically, but I can definitely talk to you about it, and that is Kingsmaker by Haga and Kang Jae-young. And this has to do with a prince. His name is Wolfgang Golden Leonard. He is the 4th prince, and he's the next to the throne in his kingdom, but he is a bit off the beaten path, and he is not very sophisticated in his nature. He's very reckless in his nature, but his servant, whom he falls for, his name is Shin Soo-yuk. He is looking to impress him through in a Pygmalion kind of way, where Shin is looking to turn Wolfgang into the proper kind of prince, and Wolfgang wants to impress him. But Shin is very sophisticated, and he's almost prudish in his nature. I originally was not going to read this. I had an alternate panel set up for this one, but because someone had to back out, I had to step in. And I'm glad that I took part in this discussion, because I enjoyed the nature of this piece. I really thought that the characters and their development were very intriguing, and I really liked the artistry and the background. I had a delight making my way through this book. Number 9 on my list is something that I read during the spring. I was in a little bit of an Iron Chef kick during the spring. And Iron Chef, the official book, which was put together by Fuji Television Inc., is my 9th favorite book that I read this year. This is the guide to everything pertaining to the 90s Japanese Iron Chef series, which covers all of the Iron Chefs that took part on the show, their statistics, an episode guide of all of the battles, the winning competitors and their restaurants, some of the best recipes, testimonies from the Iron Chefs and the cast members. This is everything that you would want pertaining to the series. Of course, it does have its flaws, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more in an upcoming review, but I really got a lot out of this, and I was really drawn in, and I felt like I knew everything that I needed to know about this series as I was reading. Number 8 on my list is my introduction to the playwright Edward Albee, and that is The Zoo Story. This was his very first play, and it is a one-act play, and it pertains to 2 gentlemen interacting on a park bench in New York City. Peter is reading the paper, just looking to mind his own business. Jerry just came back from the zoo and said that he was going to talk to Peter about his trip to the zoo, but he ultimately tells him his life story and everything else except. What's very fascinating is the character study within this piece. But Jerry is just one of those psychopathic, off the beaten path. He's just very mentally unstable. But it does make for an interesting character study, and the whole idea of humans as animals and their animal instincts. Number 7 on my list is Sleuth by Anthony Shaffer. I read this for a discussion as well, and this is a very intriguing cat and mouse game in the form of a play. The two characters of note are Andrew, who is a 57-year-old upper-class writer who's married to Marguerite, and Milo, who is 35, and he wants Marguerite for himself. Andrew knows this, and the two of them do everything they can to outwit one another in order to claim what they believe is theirs. And when you think that one has an advantage over the other, you should know that by the length of the play and the amount of characters, one is set and primed to make their own comeback. But it's more so, how do they make the comeback and get themselves back into the game that intrigues you. And I think that Sleuth is one that really gets you into thinking, and it makes you very engaged in the story at hand. Number 6 on my list is A Cheesemonger's History of the British Isles by Ned Palmer. And Ned Palmer talks about British history from the perspective of cheese. Obviously, he's going to have to go out of country in order to set up the landscape, such as the origins of cheese from 6500 BC, and the way that how it contributed to the practices of farming in lieu of hunting and gathering. And this book goes beyond the idea of general history, but instead covers cheese making in Britain, the mechanics of cheese making, different kinds of cheese, be it those that we are familiar with, or those that Palmer wants you to be paying attention to. The guide wouldn't necessarily be the greatest when it comes to somebody that's out of country, because this is cheese that's exclusive to Britain, and a lot of it is unpasteurized. But it did give me a greater idea about these unpasteurized kinds of cheese, and also a greater idea and historical background on the kinds of British cheese that I would like to know more about. I think that this touches upon everything that it sets out to touching upon, be it the championing of British cheese making, the providing you, the reader, with a greater idea and a greater fascination about the mechanics of cheese making, and how you can contrast the cheese making of other countries too, and the influences that other countries have had on British cheesemaking. It does touch upon a lot of the pop culture references, such as the Monty Python sketch, which Palmer actually makes note to the fact was a little bit accurate to the circumstance during that time. And also how Wallace of Wallace and Gromit helped increase the sales of Wensleydale after naming it his favorite. Number 5 on my list is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And this is Maya Angelou's very first memoir, and it covers the moments from the time that she was 3 and her brother Bailey was 4, and they moved to Stamps, Arkansas with their grandmother and uncle. And it goes up until the time that Maya Angelou's 17, and she gives birth to her very first son, Clyde. Clyde is not mentioned by name, but one that knows about Maya Angelou can put together the fact that the firstborn that she's talking about is her oldest son, Clyde. But Maya Angelou is just a remarkable writer. Not just a poet, but a prose writer, too. And the way that she recalls things, she's very honest and straightforward. The way that she writes, it's very much like Elie Wiesel in the way that she's very raw and natural, and she talks about things as she sees them and how she feels them, as opposed to making it cinematically attractive. Number 4 on my list is the second book in a series of unfortunate events, The Reptile Room by Lemony Snicket. In this second book in the series, the Baudelaire children move in with their Uncle Monty, who is very bubbly, outgoing, bookishly brilliant, but a bit of an airhead as far as common sense is concerned. Uncle Monty studies snakes, and he is especially concentrating on the incredibly deadly viper that he discovered and got to name. But, of course, Count Olaf is on their heels. He makes his way, and the Baudelaire children are pulled back into a miserable lifestyle. It almost feels like this book is... The fact that this is going to be a routine, I mean, obviously so, because it's a series of unfortunate events, but the way that things take place, it almost feels like it's going to begin to grate. And hopefully as the series progresses, there's something that can make it better, where they're just not making them miserable for the sake of making them miserable, like you would see in an episode of The Fairly Odd Parents. But the fact that Mr. Poe, to me, is doing the bare minimum in the interests of these children. But the one thing that keeps driving me to this series and making me enjoy it are the Baudelaire children. I root for them. Violet and her inventiveness, Klaus and his love of reading, and Sunny just being cute, cheeky, and good with her teeth. But a series of unfortunate events is something that I'm definitely inclined to continue to read. I did like The Bad Beginning better, but I still thought The Reptile Room was enjoyable and engaging. Number 3 on my list is Mystery Walk by Robert McCammon. I read Boy's Life in 2019. I thought it was brilliant. I definitely wanted to return to McCammon and picked up Mystery Walk. And this pertains to Billy Creekmore, who is a 25% Choctaw Indian. His mother, Ramona, is 50%. His grandmother is 100%. His father, John, is a Christian, but as many of the members of the community are in Hawthorne, Alabama, John is also a Klansman. And Billy discovers that he has the ability to sense death. He wants to attend a church service where Wayne Falconer is able to is able to rid people of their demons. But Wayne senses that Billy is a demon that needs to be ridden of. What I think is brilliant about McCammon is his ability to create multi-dimensional characters, and this is no exception to the rule. He has a great ability to do that. He really brings in a great... He spreads his wisdom through Billy's grandmother, Rebecca Fairmountain. And the fact that everybody possesses a talent or a strength that they're meant to share with the world in order to make it a better place. It's such a great piece of wisdom. And the whole idea that the greatest horrors are those that are real and prominent, where it's not the supernatural, but it's the hatred that people have toward one another, and how that hatred leads to deadly action is what really drives this home. And I think that this really is a powerful book, and I definitely want to read more by McCammon. Number 2 on my list is Rhinoceros by Eugene Ionesco, and this play pertains to the outbreak of rhinoceroses going after and damaging and in many cases killing those around them. And as the play progresses, people become rhinoceroses and begin to engage in deadly activity among one another. As with Ionesco's other plays, Rhinoceros is an absurdist play. However, the messages within it are very mind-blowing, very ridiculous, but I think in this case, it really brings about the idea that the way that people think. It really brings that idea that if people feel the need to become aggressive and violent in order to survive, or in order to assert themselves within society, or they feel a sense of fear, that they are going to morph into these monstrous creatures and go after one another. And it may not be the right thing, but to them, it's the right thing for that circumstance and that situation. Rhinoceros is something that I definitely want to continue to study and evaluate and even discuss as time goes by. The number 1 book that I read this year is something that I read toward the beginning of the year for a discussion. And it's something that really got to me as far as its underlying, ongoing message is concerned. And that is the first volume of Why the Last Man, Unmanned, by Brian K. Vaughan, illustrated by Pia Guerrera. And Why the Last Man follows Yorick Brown, who, after a plague that takes place during the inseminated birth of an adopted child, a plague causes everybody with the Y chromosome to be eliminated from the face of the earth, save for York Brown, who is an English major looking to make ends meet as an escape artist, and his pet rhesus monkey, Ampersand. York's mother, Jennifer Brown, is a conservative Democrat representative from Ohio. At this point, she sees that since York is the only living male left, that they need him to replenish the world with more males. But Yorick only wants to reproduce with his new fiancée, Beth, who's living on the other side of the world at the time. So Yorick is looking to make his way over to her, coming across roadblocks, though, such as the Amazons, who are looking to eliminate all men from the world, which really touches upon the extremism as far as gender is concerned. There's a great sense of division that is brought about as far as the political system is concerned. And I think that this book is really relevant and does a great job touching upon that relevance, and doing so with humor and strong characters and a plot that is solid and flows. And there are very important messages that are incorporated in order to drive this story. And I really was engaged and intrigued by my reading experience of Y the Last Man, and I'm really inclined to read more. I want to thank everybody for their ongoing support during this year, and I hope that you tune in for what we have in store next year. Really looking forward to the restructure and introducing you to our team of contributors, some of which you'll recognize from being on Literary Gladiators, some of which you'll recognize from the BookTube community, and some of them are going to be new and original. And if you really like what you see, please support our channel on Patreon. Have a happy new year, everyone, and keep reading.